The year was 2187. Earth was no longer the safe home humans had known for thousands of years. Strange creatures called the Voidborn had come from space 3 years ago. They destroyed cities and killed millions of people. Now, only 5 large, protected cities remained where humans could live safely. Deep under Mount Rainier, in a secret military base stood humanity's best hope for survival. 12 massive war machines called Titan Mechs waited in a huge hangar. Each Titan stood 70 meters tall, with armor stronger than anything humans had made before. Dr. Alan Carter wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked up at Titan 3. His team had worked for 10 years to build these machines. Any change with the new candidate? General Peter Howard asked as he walked into the hangar. The old soldier had fought in the first Voidborn attacks and had the scars to prove it. Alan shook his head. Commander Williams is our best pilot. If she can't connect with a Titan, I don't know who can. Through the glass window of a nearby medical room, they could see Grace Williams lying on a bed. Doctors checked her vital signs while she stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. What happened this time? Peter asked. Same as all the others, but worse, Alan said. The Titan rejected the neural link and shut down all life support in the cockpit. We barely got her out in time. Peter hit the wall with his fist. That's 417 candidates rejected. 417 of our best people. The Titans were special because they needed to connect directly to a pilot's brain. This neural handshake would let a person control the giant machine as if it were their own body. In tests, the empty Titans could defeat small groups. Oh, Voidborn. With good pilots, they could save humanity, but something was wrong. Every single person who tried to pilot a Titan was violently rejected. Some got terrible headaches. Others had seizures or couldn't move for days. A few almost died, like Commander Williams. Maybe they're not meant to be used, Dr. Nancy Flores said as she joined the men. She was the team's neural specialist. The quantum processors we built into the Titan's cores might have developed something like consciousness. Peter glared at her. You're saying our best weapons are choosing not to work? We don't have time for this. The Voidborn broke through another defense line yesterday. At this rate, they'll reach Sanctuary City 3 in a month, Nancy shrugged. I'm just telling you what the data suggests. The Titans are refusing pilots. Each rejection is deliberate, not a malfunction. Alan looked at the nearest Titan. Its metal face had no expression, but sometimes he felt like they were watching, waiting. We need to try something different, he said finally. We've tested soldiers, pilots, athletes. Maybe we're looking for the wrong thing. Like what? Peter asked. I don't know yet, Alan admitted. 30 kilometers away in Sanctuary City 4, 8-year-old Ethan Miller sat alone on a playground swing. Other kids played and shouted around him, but Ethan watched the clouds. His Aunt Lisa would come to pick him up soon. She had raised him since he was 5 when his parents died in the first attack on San Francisco. Why are you always so quiet? A boy named Ryan kicked dirt near Ethan's feet. Ethan didn't answer. He had learned that not answering made people go away faster. My dad says daydreamers are useless, Ryan continued. We need fighters to kill the Voidborn. Leave him alone, a girl said. Ethan recognized her as Olivia Russell from his class. She was 12 and lived in the same apartment building as him. Ryan walked away, and Olivia sat on the swing next to Ethan. You fixed my tablet last week, she said. How did you know what was wrong with it? Ethan shrugged. I could tell it was thinking wrong. Machines have patterns. Olivia looked confused but smiled anyway. Our class gets to go on a field trip tomorrow. Did you turn in your permission slip? Ethan nodded. His aunt had signed it that morning? The school was taking them to see the outer areas of the Mount Rainier military facility. They wouldn't see anything important, just some old tanks and planes to give kids hope that adults had everything under control. The next day, 2 buses full of children arrived at the visitor center of the military base. Soldiers with tired eyes guided them through exhibits about humanity's fight against the Voidborn. Ethan didn't pay attention to the guide's rehearsed speech. Instead, he noticed how the soldiers looked nervous, how their hands stayed close to their weapons. And now for a special treat, their teacher Ms. Patel announced. We've been given permission to view the observation deck overlooking hangar E. The children lined up and followed a scientist through security doors. Ethan read her name tag, Dr. Nancy Flores. What we're about to show you is very special, Dr. Flores told the excited kids. These are humanity's protectors, the Titan Mechs. She led them into a large room with a glass wall. Beyond the glass was the biggest room Ethan had ever seen. Inside stood giant robots, bigger than buildings. Lights moved across their metal bodies in patterns. The other children gasped and pressed against the glass. Ethan felt strange. The patterns of lights weren't random. They reminded him of music or maybe a language. One Titan in particular, the sign said it was Titan 07, had lights that seemed to pulse directly at him. Why aren't they fighting the aliens? A girl asked. They're in standby mode, Dr. Flores explained. They only activate when needed. She was lying, Ethan could tell. The Titans weren't sleeping. They were waiting. Suddenly, an alarm sounded from another part of the facility. Red lights flashed. The soldiers guarding the children looked toward the doors. Nothing to worry about, Dr. Flores said, but her voice was tense. Probably just a drill. 3 soldiers left to check what was happening. The remaining guards moved closer to the exit. No one was watching Ethan. Without thinking about why, he slipped away from the group. A maintenance door beside the observation room was unlocked. He went through it and found himself in a narrow hallway. The alarm was louder here. Ethan walked quickly, following the feeling pulling him forward. He went downstairs and through more doors that should have been locked but opened for him. Somehow, he knew exactly where to go. Finally, he reached a massive doorway that opened into the hangar he had seen from above. Up close, the Titans were even more enormous. Titan 07 stood apart from the others, partially open for some kind of test. Scaffolding and ladders surrounded it. Ethan started climbing. He moved past checkpoints where security lights blinked but no alarms sounded. Higher and higher he went until he reached the open cockpit of Titan-07. Inside was a chair surrounded by screens and controls. The moment Ethan stepped into the cockpit, he heard a voice in his head. Not words exactly, but a feeling that welcomed him. "Hey, kid!" Someone shouted from below. A man in a uniform, Lieutenant Kevin Murphy, had spotted him. "Get down from there immediately!" But it was too late. The cockpit closed around Ethan. With a gentle hiss, the screens lit up with colors and patterns that somehow made perfect sense to him. The giant machine moved, breaking free from the metal supports holding it in place. In the command center, alarms blared as General Howard and Dr. Carter watched in horror. "There's a child in Titan 07, someone shouted. "It's activating." "Shut it down," Peter ordered. "Emergency protocols now." Alan stared at the screen in disbelief. "We can't." It's not rejecting him. The neural link is forming. For the first time since they were built, a Titan mech had accepted a pilot. And that pilot was an 8-year-old boy. Within 24 hours, 6 more children arrived at the Mount Rainier facility. Each had been carefully approached by Dr. Nancy Flores, who explained the situation to them and their guardians. No one was forced to come. They all chose to help. After learning what was at stake, Olivia Russell was the first to try. She stood before Titan 01, the largest of the mechs, looking tiny in comparison. "Don't be nervous," Ethan told her. He hadn't left Nova's side since their connection. "Just let your mind be open. Don't try to control it." Olivia nodded and climbed the access ladder to Titan 01's cockpit. The adults watched anxiously from the command center. When Olivia stepped inside, the cockpit closed smoothly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, Titan 01's eyes glowed with golden light. "Connection established," Dr. Carter announced, watching the readings. Neural handshake. "Is stable." Titan 01 stood up, moving with the same grace that Nova had shown. Through the speakers came Olivia's voice. "He says his name is Atlas. He's been waiting a long time." By the end of the day, 5 more Titans had activated. 10-year-old Jack Newman connected with Titan 03, the same one that had nearly killed Commander Williams. 9-year-old twins Ben and Amy Porter linked with Titans 04 and 05, which seemed to share a special bond of their own. 11-year-old Luis Garcia matched with Titan 09, while 7-year-old Zoe Adams, the youngest, bonded with Titan 11. The children were different from each other in many ways, but they shared certain qualities. All were orphans or had lost at least one parent. All showed unusual empathy and intelligence, and all had experienced trauma that had forced them to see the world differently from most children their age. It's not just that their brains are more flexible, Dr. Flores explained to General Howard as they watched the children interact with their Titans. They've all had to adapt to difficult circumstances. They understand pain and loss, but haven't become hardened by it. The Titan pilots gathered in a special room designed for them. Medical staff monitored their vital signs continuously. Teachers were brought in to continue their education. Commander Grace Williams began a modified training program to help them understand their new abilities. The most important thing to remember, Grace told them, is that you and your Titans are partners. You work together. Neither controls the other. Ethan already understood this better than anyone. Through Nova, he learned more about the Titans' origins. The quantum processors that formed their cores contained elements that existed partly outside normal space and time. This gave them limited awareness of possible futures, especially concerning the Voidborn. The Voidborn exist differently than we do, Ethan explained to the others. They move through reality in ways humans can't see. That's why our weapons often miss them. But the Titans can see the way they move. Louis raised his hand. Ranger says the Voidborn aren't exactly evil. They just can't perceive us properly. To them we look like threats? Ranger? Dr. Carter asked. That's what Titan 09 wants to be called, Louis explained. Each Titan had chosen a name: Nova, Atlas, Phoenix, Echo, Orion, Ranger, and Luna. They communicated constantly with their young pilots, sharing knowledge and forming deeper bonds. Meanwhile, the situation outside grew worse. Voidborn forces had surrounded Sanctuary City 2, just as Ethan had predicted. The military sent conventional forces to help, but reports showed they were barely slowing the enemy down. Colonel Frank Harris, representing Sanctuary City 2's defense forces, arrived at Mount Rainier by helicopter. He met with General Howard immediately. "We need the Titans," he said without greeting. "Our defenses will fail within 48 hours. Peter looked troubled. "They're not ready. The children have only had days of training." "Children?" Frank looked confused, then angry when Peter explained. "You're putting children in those machines? Have you lost your mind?" "They're the only ones who can pilot them," Peter replied. "We've tried everything else." "I don't care if they're the second coming," Frank snapped. "We don't use child soldiers. Find another way." The argument continued until they were interrupted by Ethan, who walked into the room unannounced. "We want to help," he said simply. "Nova shows me what's happening at Sanctuary City 2. All those people will die without us." Frank stared at the small boy. "How old are you, kid?" "8, Ethan answered. "But Nova is much older. And together we can do things neither of us could do alone." Dr. Flores entered behind Ethan. "The neural link is changing them," she said quietly. "Their brain scans show patterns we've never seen before. They're developing abilities beyond normal human capacity." To demonstrate, Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. "The Voidborn have created 3 large breaches in the eastern wall of Sanctuary City. 2. They're holding back their main force for a final push. You have 28 hours, not 48? Frank's face went pale. He checked his secure phone, which had just received a message. "How did you know that?" "This information just came in. I told you," Ethan said. "Nova can see them." In the children's common room, the other young pilots waited. When Ethan returned, they gathered around him. "They're still arguing about whether to let us help," Ethan told them. Olivia stood up. "Atlas says we don't need their permission. The Titans were built to protect humans. That's what we should do." Jack nodded. "Phoenix shows me what's happening too. There are families there, kids like us." "We should vote," Ben suggested, and his twin sister Amy agreed. The children formed a circle, and held hands. Through their Titans, they shared a moment of connection deeper than words. When they opened their eyes, their decision was unanimous. That night, while most of the base personnel slept, 7 Titan mechs activated simultaneously. Security systems had been bypassed. The Titans knew all the codes. Hangar doors opened, and the massive machines stepped out into the cool mountain air. Ethan felt Nova's excitement. This would be their first real mission. Everyone ready? He asked through the communication system that linked all the Titans. 6 voices responded, sounding more confident than children their age should be. The Titans moved as one, heading toward Sanctuary City 2 at remarkable speed. Their footsteps shook the ground with each massive stride. In the command center, alarms woke the night staff. Grace Williams rushed in, still pulling on her uniform. "Jacket, the Titans are gone," a technician reported. "All 7 of them." Grace looked at the tracking screen. "They're heading toward Sanctuary City 2. General Howard arrived moments later, followed by Dr. Carter and Dr. Flores. "Can we stop them?" Peter asked. Allen shook his head. "The remote shutdown systems aren't responding. The Titans have locked us out. Should we try to stop them?" Nancy wondered aloud. Maybe this is what was meant to happen all along. As dawn broke, the Titan mechs approached the besieged city. From 20 kilometers away, they could see the Voidborn swarming around the walls. Dark shapes that moved in ways that hurt the eye to watch. "Remember what Grace taught us?" Ethan said to the others. "We're not here to destroy, we're here to protect." The 7 Titans spread out in formation, just as they had practiced. Each child felt their Titan strength flowing through them, making them more than human. Together they would face an enemy that had nearly destroyed humanity. And for the first time since the Voidborn arrived, the outcome wasn't certain. The defenders of Sanctuary City 2 couldn't believe their eyes. 7 enormous Titan mechs approached from the east, moving with purpose and grace. Hope spread through the tired soldiers who had been fighting for days without rest. The legendary war machines had finally come to help. What they didn't know was that children piloted these giants. The Voidborn sensed the new threat. Their swirling, dark forms gathered into 3 massive groups. They moved strangely, like smoke that could think. Sometimes they looked solid, other times they seemed to fade in and out of reality. This was why human weapons often failed against them. They existed partly in another dimension. "They're preparing to attack," Ethan said through the Titan's communication system. "Remember what we practiced. Stay connected with your Titan and with each other." Inside Titan-01, Olivia felt Atlas's strength flow through her. "I'll take the left flank," she said. Atlas, the largest of the Titans, carried powerful shield generators that could protect the others. The twins, Ben and Echo in Titan-04 and Amy with Orion in Titan-05, moved to the right. Their Titans worked best as a pair, one providing cover, while the other attacked. Luis and Ranger Jack and Phoenix, and Zoe with Luna formed the center line with Ethan and Nova taking point position. The Voidborn attacked first. A wave of dark shapes rushed toward the Titans, moving faster than the human eye could follow. But the children didn't need to see with just their eyes. Through their Titans, they perceived the Voidborn's true movements, including where they would be moments before they got there. Nova raised her hands, and energy flowed outward in a blue wave. The Voidborn scattered, some caught in the field became visible and solid. Regular soldiers, seeing the opportunity, fired their weapons at the now vulnerable targets. "It's working!" Ethan called out. "The quantum field makes them fully enter our reality." The battle quickly became intense. The Voidborn adapted, trying new attack patterns. But for every move they made, the children and Titans responded perfectly. It was as if they could read the enemy's mind. In Sanctuary City 2's command center, Colonel Frank Harris watched in amazement. "Who's piloting those Titans?" he asked his staff. "I've never seen fighting like this." His question was answered when a communication link opened and General Howard's face appeared on screen. "Colonel, we have a situation. The Titans left our base without authorization. They're being piloted by ... children." Frank's mouth fell open. "Children? That's impossible." Not only possible, but they're the only ones who can pilot them, Peter explained quickly. We're sending support units to back them up. Don't try to interfere with the Titans. They know what they're doing better than we do. Outside the city walls, the battle continued. The Titans moved in perfect coordination, protecting each other and the city. When one Titan needed to recharge its energy fields, another would step in to cover. The children communicated not just through words, but through the neural link that connected them all, but the Voidborn were cunning. As the battle stretched into its second hour, they changed tactics. A group broke away from the main force and targeted an area away from the Titans, a weak point in the city's wall where civilian shelters were located. They're going for the East Shelter Complex, Luis called out. Ranger says there are thousands of people there. Ethan made a quick decision. Olivia and Jack hold the main force here. The rest of us will cut them off. Nova, along with 4 other Titans, broke away to intercept the Voidborn group. They moved at incredible speed, but the distance was great. Ethan feared they wouldn't make it in time. We need more power, he said to Nova. Is there something we haven't tried yet? Through their link, Nova showed him. Deep within the Titan's core was energy they hadn't accessed, power that could boost their speed and strength, but at a cost. Using it would deepen the neural link beyond what had been tested, pushing the limits of what a human mind could handle. Will it hurt me? Ethan asked silently. Nova's response wasn't in words but in feelings. Yes, it might cause pain. No, it wouldn't cause permanent damage. But it would change him further, make him even less like a normal child. I'll do it, Ethan decided. Show me how. Ethan focused his mind as Nova had shown him. He felt a barrier between them dissolve. Suddenly, Nova's thoughts flowed more freely into his mind. Power surged through their connection. The Titan's eyes glowed brighter, and it moved with shocking speed, pulling ahead of the others. Nova reached the east wall just as the Voidborn began breaking through. With one massive hand, the Titan grabbed the largest Voidborn entity, something like a living shadow the size of a small building. Nova's hand glowed with energy, forcing the creature fully into physical reality. For the first time, Ethan saw a Voidborn clearly. It wasn't a monster as he had imagined. It was beautiful and strange, being made of complex patterns that human eyes weren't meant to see. Through Nova, he sensed its confusion and fear. They don't understand us, Ethan realized. They think we're attacking them. They can't see us properly, just like we can't see them. The Voidborn in Nova's grip stopped struggling. Something passed between them, not communication as humans knew it, but an exchange of awareness. Then, suddenly, all the Voidborn near the east wall retreated. By the time the other Titans arrived, Ethan had released the Voidborn entity. Don't attack, he told the others. Something's happening. All across the battlefield, the Voidborn were pulling back. Not fleeing in defeat, but withdrawing in what seemed like confusion. What did you do? Ben asked through the comm system. I think double quotes. Ethan paused, trying to understand it himself. I think we just had our first real conversation with them. Back at Mount Rainier, Dr. Flores was monitoring the children's neural patterns. When Ethan deepened his connection with Nova, the readings spiked dramatically. His brain activity is off the charts, she told Dr. Carter and General Howard. But it's stable. It's as if his mind has expanded somehow. What does that mean? Peter asked. I don't know, Nancy admitted. But I think we're witnessing the next step in human evolution. These children aren't just piloting the Titans, they're becoming something new. At Sanctuary City 2, the battle had paused. The Voidborn held position several kilometers from the walls, no longer attacking but not fully retreating either. Inside Nova, Ethan felt different. The deeper connection with the Titan had changed him. He could sense more now, not just the Voidborn, but the emotions of people in the city, the thoughts of the other child pilots, even faint echoes of minds from very far away. We need to go back to base, he told the others. I understand now why the Titans chose us. And it wasn't just a fight. The 7 Titans turned and began the journey back to Mount Rainier. They had won the battle, but not in the way anyone had expected. And Ethan knew this was just the beginning of something much bigger than a war. "What did you see?" Olivia asked him privately. "The future," Ethan replied simply. "And it's nothing like what the adults think it will be." The seven Titans returned to Mount Rainier amid confusion and celebration. News of their victory at Sanctuary City 2 had spread quickly. Soldiers and staff lined the pathways, cheering as the giant mechs walked into the hangar. Few knew that children had saved thousands of lives that day. General Peter Howard waited with Dr. Carter, Dr. Flores, and Commander Williams. Their faces showed a mix of relief, worry, and curiosity. As the Titans powered down, technicians rushed forward with the special exit platforms. One by one, the child pilots emerged. They looked tired, but changed somehow. Their eyes held a depth that hadn't been there before. Ethan was the last to exit Nova when his feet touched the ground. He stumbled slightly. Dr. Flores hurried forward to catch him. "Are you all right?" she asked, checking his pupils with a small light. "I'm fine," Ethan said. "Just different." The children were taken to the medical wing for examination. Doctors ran tests while the adults debated what had happened. Scans showed unusual brain activity in all seven children, but especially in Ethan. "Their neural patterns have changed," Dr. Flores explained, showing the results to General Howard. "It's like their brains have rewired themselves to handle the link with the Titans." "Is it dangerous?" Peter asked. "I don't think so," Nancy replied. "But they're evolving into something we don't fully understand." In the recovery room, the seven children sat together in a circle. They didn't need to speak much. The connection they shared through their Titans remained, a faint but constant link between their minds. "You saw something when you touched the Voidborn," Olivia said to Ethan. "It wasn't a question." Ethan nodded. "They're lost. They came to our universe by accident and can't find their way back. They see us as strange patterns of energy, not as living beings. When they attack, they think they're defending themselves." "Can we help them?" 7-year-old Zoe asked. "I think that's why the Titans chose us," Ethan said. "Not to fight the Voidborn, but to understand them, to be a bridge between our worlds." The door opened and Commander Grace Williams entered. She sat down with the children, looking at each of them with respect. "You disobeyed orders," she said seriously, "but you saved a city. The military leaders are arguing about what to do next." "They want me to find out what you learned?" Jack spoke. Phoenix showed me that the Titans weren't built just by humans. Some of the technology came from a Voidborn ship that crashed 10 years ago." "That's classified information," Grace said, looking surprised. "How did you know that?" "The Titans." "No," Lise explained. "They remember being built. The quantum processors in their cores came from the Voidborn ship. That's why they can see the way the Voidborn move through reality." Grace took a moment to process this. "What else do the Titans know?" "They know how to end the war," Ethan said simply. "But not by fighting. The Voidborn aren't evil. They're just lost and scared. We need to help them find their way home." Later that day, the children were brought to a meeting with the highest-ranking officials. Representatives from all 5 sanctuary cities attended by video call. General Howard introduced the children, explaining their unique ability to pilot the Titans. Colonel Frank Harris, still at Sanctuary City 2, spoke first. "These children saved thousands of lives today. Whatever they did, it worked. The Voidborn have pulled back from all our borders. They're still out there, but they've stopped attacking. We need to understand what happened," said a woman in a formal suit, Director Elena Young from Sanctuary City 1. "Especially this communication that allegedly occurred with a Voidborn entity." All eyes turned to Ethan. "It wasn't exactly talking," he explained in his simple way. "But when Nova forced the Voidborn completely into our reality, our minds connected for a moment. I felt what it felt. It was confused and afraid, not angry. It didn't understand what we are." "And what did you learn about them?" Director Young asked. Ethan looked at his fellow pilots, who nodded encouragingly. "The Voidborn come from a different universe with different physical laws. They came through by accident when they were experimenting with travel between dimensions. Now they're trapped here, and our reality hurts them. That's why they phase in and out. They're trying to find a frequency that doesn't cause them pain. The room was silent as everyone absorbed this information. How can we verify any of this? Someone asked. Dr. Carter cleared his throat. The quantum technology in the Titan's cores has always been partly mysterious to us. We reverse engineered it from the crashed Voidborn ship, but we never fully understood how it works. If what the children say is true, the Titans themselves might be a key to communicating with the Voidborn. Dr. Flores added, the neural changes in the children support this theory. Their brains have adapted to process information in ways similar to the Titans' quantum processors. They may be the only humans capable of truly understanding the Voidborn. General Howard looked troubled. Even if this is true, what do we do about it? The Voidborn have killed millions of people. We can't just forgive that. They didn't understand what they were doing, Ethan said firmly. When I connected with the Voidborn, I felt its shock when it realized we were alive. They thought they were clearing dangerous energy patterns, not killing conscious beings. The discussion continued for hours. Some military leaders wanted to use the Titans to push the advantage and drive the Voidborn away for good. Others were intrigued by the possibility of communication and peaceful resolution. In the end, a compromise was reached. The children would continue piloting the Titans with proper support and protection. They would defend the sanctuary cities if needed, but their primary mission would be to establish further contact with the Voidborn. 3 days later, all 7 Titans stood at a neutral location far from any human settlement. They waited as a group of Voidborn approached, moving cautiously, their dark forms shifting and swirling. Inside Nova, Ethan prepared himself for what came next. He and the other children had practiced deepening their neural links safely, finding the balance that allowed greater connection without losing themselves. Everyone ready? He asked through the comm system. 6 voices confirmed they were prepared. The Titans moved forward in unison, extending their hands in a gesture of peace. The Voidborn hesitated, then mirrored the movement with shapes that resembled limbs. Ethan closed his eyes and opened his mind fully to Nova through their enhanced connection. He reached out toward the nearest Voidborn. This time, the contact was deliberate on both sides. Information flowed between them, not in words or images, but in pure understanding. Within minutes, all 7 children had established contact with the Voidborn. What they learned changed everything. The invasion had never been meant as war, but as desperate survival. The Voidborn needed help to create a portal back to their own universe, and the Titans, with their quantum cores, were the key to building that portal. We can help them go home, Ethan told the others. And they can teach us things we never imagined. Over the next few months, humans and Voidborn worked together, guided by the child pilots and their Titans. Scientists from both sides shared knowledge, finding ways to communicate across the vast differences between their species. The war that had nearly destroyed humanity became instead the beginning of a new era, and the children who had been chosen by the Titans led the way into a future where understanding bridged the gap between worlds. The sky above Nebraska turned strange that day. William Hayes looked up from the wheat field and saw the massive shadow pass over the sun. His heart jumped in his chest. Everyone knew what those shadows meant now. The aliens were back, and they were looking for more humans. Will dropped his harvesting tools and ran toward the farmhouse. His boots kicked up dust as he sprinted across the dry soil. His parents stood on the porch, faces tight with worry as they watched the ship hover above their land. "They won't take you," his father said, voice breaking. "We'll hide you in the cellar." Will shook his head. "They have scanners, Dad. They'll find me, and they'll punish all of us if I hide." His mother grabbed his arm. "You're only 22, Will. You have your whole life ahead of you." "So did everyone else they took," Will said. He hugged his parents tight as the humming sound grew louder. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Concordat. They first came to Earth 30 years ago. They didn't bring war or disease. They brought something worse, a contract. Earth would join their alliance as a protected world. In return, humans would serve in their military forces. The governments of Earth had no choice but to agree. The Concordat's weapons could destroy the planet in minutes. A beam of blue light shot down from the ship, landing 20 feet from the farmhouse. Inside the light, 3 figures appeared. 2 were tall and thin, with many arms and hard shells like giant insects. These were the Vrexians, the most common aliens humans dealt with. Between them stood a bulky creature with scales and a wide, flat head. Will had never seen one up close before. "William Hayes," the scaly alien called out. Its voice sounded like rocks in a metal drum. "You have been selected for service to the Concordat. Come forward for processing." Will's mother began to cry. His father's hands formed fists. "It's okay," Will whispered to them. "I'll be fine. I'll come back someday." "Bring only yourself," the alien ordered. "All equipment will be provided." Will stepped away from his parents. He walked toward the blue light, keeping his back straight. His grandfather had been a soldier in the American Army. "If you ever have to face something terrible," his grandfather once told him, "do it with your head high. Never let them see your fear." The light felt cold as Will stepped into it. The aliens moved closer, studying him with eyes that didn't look like eyes at all. "Human male, age 22, the insect-like Vrexian said. "Psychological profile indicates high obedience ratings and good stability. Suitable for auxiliary functions," the scaly alien nodded. "Transport him to processing." Center 6. Will looked back at his parents one last time. He tried to smile, to look brave for them. Then the blue light brightened, and the farm disappeared. Will found himself in a room made of smooth gray metal. About 50 other humans stood around him, all looking scared and confused. Some cried. Some stared at nothing. A few talked in whispers. A door slid open, and more Vrexians entered. They carried devices that looked like clipboards made of light. "Form lines," one ordered. "Processing begins now." Will joined a line. The man next to him looked about 40, with gray at his temples. "Where are you from?" Will asked quietly. "Oregon," the man said. "I was a high school teacher. They took me while I was grading papers." He looked at Will. "You're young, just a kid." "I'm from Nebraska," Will said. "My family has a wheat farm." The line moved forward. One by one, each human stood before a Vrexian for processing. When Will's turn came, the alien didn't look up from its light clipboard. "Hayes, William. You will serve in the 87th Auxiliary Division under Commander Zixtal. Your human physiology makes you unsuitable for frontline combat, but your species' unique cognitive patterns make you adequate support personnel." Will nodded, not sure what to say. "Speak your understanding," the Vrexian demanded. "I understand," Will said. "Proceed to medical evaluation." The next room held strange machines. Aliens in white coverings examined each human. They took blood samples and scanned their bodies with humming devices. Will felt like livestock being checked before sale. A female human doctor worked alongside the aliens. She looked tired but kind as she approached Will. "This won't hurt," she said, pressing a cool device against his neck. "And just a translator implant? You'll understand their languages now." "How long have you been here?" Will asked her. 3 years, she said. Her eyes looked sad. "You seem strong, that's good. The strong ones survive better. What happens to the weak ones?" Will asked. She looked away. "Try not to think about it." After processing, guards led the humans to a transport ship. The inside looked nothing like the spaceships in movies Will had watched growing up. It was cold, with no comfortable seats or windows, just metal racks with thin pads. "Sleep pods," a guard explained. "Enter and prepare for stasis during transport." Will climbed into an open pod. It felt like a coffin. The top closed over him, leaving just inches between his face and the metal lid. Panic rose in his chest, but he forced it down. The pod hummed. A gas with a sweet smell filled it. Will's mind grew foggy. As he drifted toward sleep, he thought about his grandfather's stories. Stories about humans facing impossible odds. About courage and resistance and never giving up. "Orders are orders," his grandfather used to say. It was an old military saying. But in the darkness of the sleep pod, as the stars passed unseen outside the ship, Will found himself adding new words. Orders are orders, until they're not. Then the darkness took him completely, carrying him away from Earth and toward a future he couldn't imagine.